Welcome to a new episode of the VSP podcast. Today we're going to be interviewing longtime friend and sports chiropractor, Dr. Jake Altman. We're excited to have him on. Not only are we going to be talking about all what he does, but he's going to be a presenter at our Baseball Performance Summit, which is going to be hosted here Saturday, November 22nd. Please click the link in the bio to sign up. We're really looking forward to this event. And we have a great panel of speakers, just like Dr. Jake. So let's get into the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Jake.
Hi.
We're happy to have you on.
Thank you.
So the audience is really, really intrigued to hear all about you. You know that, right?
I'm sure they are.
So why don't you just give us a little bit of insight of how you even became the person you are, chiropractor, longtime friend of VSP. How did it all go down?
I will do my best to give you the abridged version. So growing up, I knew I wanted to work in sports medicine. And I played football. As a distinct memory, I played football. I know, shocking, right? I played football. I wasn't super great at it, but I played and I loved it. And what I was as intrigued by beyond the game was actually the gentleman who was helping out with the team. It's like he was a PT and athletic trainer. And I was as intrigued, if not more intrigued, by what he was doing with the players. Thankfully, we didn't have too many serious injuries, but I was more interested in what he was doing than when I was on the sidelines, than the act of playing. And that I knew I wanted to do something in sports medicine, like I said, and so when I searched around the gamut, went to undergrad, I spent time shadowing different offices and came to the realization that I worked as a student athletic training intern, but that wasn't the path for me, and so over time I saw that I actually can have a lot of autonomy in what I do. I can use my hands to help people out. I can still do soft tissue work and rehab and exercise and all the things that I really am passionate about, that I believe in the capacity I am as a chiropractor. And so I subsequently went to chiropractic school, got hordes of certifications, all that, to kind of further evolve my craft. And from then on, just kind of continued training and learning and developing and evolving and changing preconceived notions. Every 6 months, I try and make sure I review how I feel about things, and if they haven't changed, then I need to update my thought processes probably. And then I had the great fortune of being stubborn after I worked for a few other places, went on my own, and met Kevin, whom we know, and then Kevin introduced me to you, and then we were at VSP for a long amount of time, and now we're here.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
I would say so.
Well, this is a more personal question, but what made you choose becoming a chiro versus a PT?
Ooh, good one. So as an athletic training intern where I went at Binghamton, what up, SUNY Bing, I got a lot of autonomy, pretty much at a certain point, because I was kind of leading the charge there. Under the tutelage of the athletic trainers, there was very few things that I wasn't allowed to do. I wasn't doing like the Graston therapy, but I was setting up heat and stim and ultrasound, and once they trusted me, like, I didn't need to check in with them, the certain factors or settings. I would stretch people out, I was crazy good at getting the ice bags prepared and wrapping around people. And then I thought, okay, well, I know I want to go on. My uncle's an orthopedist, but that wasn't the avenue for me, because I wanted like hand-in-hand work with patients day in, day out. And I just not suited for my personality as much. And so I shadowed a PT place that I got connected to. And the one thing I saw there, and this is not an indictment of PT, is just it was a high-volume place. And it was very close to where I lived in Binghamton, actually. And the people doing all the work weren't the physical therapists at this particular practice, it was the physical therapy aides. And since I was shadowing, I was tasked with doing laundry there. Now, I did not expect to go in and do any of the modalities, because they have liability and it's patients and all the thing. But I actually did more as a student athletic training intern, and got an inordinate amount of hours with that it wouldn't count towards it. And it really is just not what I anticipated. And now I understand that, like, not every practice, in fact, very few work with the highest level of athletes. And even if a practice, PT or chiropractic, does have collegiate athletes, they also have high school athletes and Gen Pop too. So the idea in my head was not met with the reality of what I saw. And then at that point, I was like, all right, well, let me look at where I might be able to kind of further hone my skills. And thankfully, I had some great mentors along the way and people I emailed that were kind enough to respond to me. Like the guy that was the chiropractor and ART practitioner for the Miami Dolphins, emailed the guy and he responded. We corresponded back and forth, just out of the kindness of his heart. And that kind of set me up to know, hey, this is a path I can follow. And like I said, some of the autonomy I referenced before, People don't need a script to see me. I can order imaging, I can evaluate imaging. There's just kind of a little bit more leeway I had. And the cruel irony being that people often think I'm a physical therapist given how I practice, but I don't, I probably said this to you before in passing, but I care less about the box that I'm put in, more about what I can do to help someone.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's funny you say that because obviously you've worked on me, and I've gotten to experience a lot of different types of tools, modalities, approaches, and sometimes certain things work better for certain people. And I can definitely appreciate that you're so versatile, especially when you're working with your patients. So if you're ever looking for anyone in the Long Island area, you got to go to Dr. Jake. But all right, transition here a little bit. So I know you've worked with a lot of Gen Pop and you've worked with athletes as well. Do you have a different approach with how you go after their treatment?
That's a really good question. I think the movement standards in terms of like what I would look at are the same, but the degree of which we scrutinize things might change.
Okay.
And then especially when we talk about sport-specific care, I've tried to put myself in the best position to be, as you said, versatile in terms of, because I see a large amount of different athletes. Like I'm working a huge CrossFit event this weekend, like with jiu-jitsu athletes, obviously a lot of the VSP athletes here, baseball, softball, soccer, football, you name it. I have avid bowler now. And so the thing that I've always tried to do is break down what are the mechanics necessary for that sport. Mm-hmm. And then based on that, where would we really need to make sure that we have stability and mobility in particular places? Yeah. Obviously, for a baseball athlete versus lacrosse, it's not grossly dissimilar, but if we talk about a pitcher versus catcher, then we can start to get some of the nuance of the joint prerequisites. Yeah. So in other words, there's like a governing principle I work off of, like what does the human body need, like regular people or any of us as humans, and then based on the activities and endeavors that someone wants, then we start to scrutinize it more.
Yeah, so now one of the buzzwords in the baseball world is arm care. So, and I see a lot of kids, especially when they come in here, maybe they'll do some arm care exercise, or I see them at the game. They got their J-bands and they're just cranking on their shoulders and whatnot. And sometimes it's not a bad thing, but a lot of times it's not the best. But when you hear the word or the phrase arm care, like, what does that mean to you? Like, what is your approach to that? Like, what are your thoughts?
I feel there's probably the category of what people commonly do versus what I might tend to suggest, which they overlap. It's not so dissimilar. I think the biggest thing that's happened in the trends that I saw since when I was in school versus now, because although I look super young, it's been a bit, and I think there's been more and more and more oversight, thankfully, in the pitch count, and really the parent involvement in a good way. Like I have some youth athletes whose parents are intimately involved, if not their coaches, but they're their first advocate too, and so they're really on top of how many pitches are thrown if we're talking the pitcher. That being said, these kids are in school and they can be neurologically fried most of the time, and the sheer amount of activity and the sheer amount of teams that they're commonly on, arm care can change. Arm care can be less about like the banded exercises, more about what are we doing to just de-stress the environment. For me, what I'd recommend often is we look at other places from the kinematic sequence standpoint of how the different joints move in sequence to help out, and also what can we do to just calm the nervous system. Yeah. So arm care to me, I guess ironically, is as much about the arm and then also as much not about the arm.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. I don't think a lot of people think of it that way. Everyone, they localize it to just the shoulder, right? And they're worrying about, do I have enough external rotation? Do I look like, Jacob deGrom? We've all seen those crazy pictures of his arm, literally, below parallel, which is crazy. But, I think that if we could start to shift that thought process, hopefully, and we know the sport of baseball is plagued by injury, that, we'll start to see some less injuries, going around.
I think that's the interesting thing about the pitching position in particular. I always think of Tim Lincecum, because the kind of just force he produced and velocity he produced, the way his body was shaped and how he went about it. There's like the general pitching motion, obviously, in the layback position, all things we look for, and the joint prerequisites. We want, if it's a right-handed pitcher, more inter-rotation on that left side, lead leg. But then there's variation on the theme. I think I don't think what people understand, and this works for the youth athlete often, is that there's a base prerequisite of a soft tissue extensibility that has to be there. You can be stiff and be a pitcher, but you have to be really particular about the stuff you stay on top of. And you have to have be very like militant about your throwing motion, even more than those that have extensibility. And then if we swing the pendulum the other way, if someone is too loose and too hyperflexible, which is often the case, we need to be really on top of the stability requirements and have requisite strength so that it's not just, loosey-goosey and things are going to fall apart. But again, what I tend to see if people's arms are stiff and tight, okay, well, we can work on the rotator cuff muscles, we can work on the lat, we can work on the pectoral muscles, and all that holds weight, but how do we prevent it from happening again? So, and if Jacob deGrom is the example you used, people get this. I also think it can be missed. He's the top 0.00000000001% of his sport. They're off the charts.
Yep.
And there's youth athletes who will be in that position, but statistically, the odds are not. So how do we treat them as youth athletes, but also keep in mind that we can't judge the highest level of athletes as the standard.
Yeah.
They're the pinnacle, not the standard. So we have to find what we want as a goal somewhere in between that.
Yeah. No, and I think that's important. Now, you and I were talking a little bit before the podcast, about what you're going to discuss at the baseball summit, and not to get too much into it, but how much of an effect does the lower body have on the upper body in terms of mechanics, just overall movement?
So I'm actually going to plug Hard Knocks. I'm going to plug Hard Knocks. They just had the Bills on my team. And
not looking good, by the way. But
we're not going to talk about that. That doesn't matter. I think it was the 34th episode. And of the entirety, it was kind of boring because the Bills are boring, and that's okay. We're cool with it. The coolest segment was Josh Allen working with his biomechanist, his pitching, his throwing. The guy is just, I don't even know what his title is, an exercise physiologist.
Okay.
But the whole segment of that particular episode was about how Josh Allen had to change his throwing motion from how he did it in high school and college in particular, because he had a Lee growth spurt, to the pros. And again, people have failed in the NFL with the draft. We won't get into it, but trying to find the next Josh Allen, he's 101. Glad the Bills have him, but he's 101. But the thing, and they even mentioned that about how the guys like certain number of reps to get the requisite change they want to see. But the biggest thing for him is instead of throwing it like a baseball athlete or just really armed, because he's got a strong arm, how he could most efficiently generate force, again, as a phrase I said before, through the kinematic sequence.
Yep.
So the biggest thing for him was using his lower half. It was literally using his legs to make it more efficient for him to effectively throw the ball.
Yep.
And I put pitchers and quarterbacks in that same category of how can we make and you obviously handle the strengthening side of this, but how can we make sure that people are aware of their lower half, they have access to the ranges of motion, and then they have strength on top of that. Because the sad truth is their arm will fail if they do not. That's why you see a bunch of kids early on who are throwing with heat, but they haven't synchronized it. They may just have advanced strength for their particular age, and then they break down.
Yep.
And that's the worst thing that can happen. We want them to be able to continue to participate. So the better they are at that force production from the lower extremity, that's everything.
Yeah. So now, are there specific, we don't have to get too specific, but are there exercises or movements that you're looking for throughout the whole body? Like if you were to pick maybe 3, hey, I want quality movement in this part of the body, what would it be?
We look at what rotates.
Okay.
There's a principle that's kind of governing what I was mentioning before, but kind of governs my thought process is something called the joint-by-joint principle. And it was popularized a while ago by a few different guys within the training and PT and chiro community, but the basis is certain joints have certain requirements or necessities so that you can, for effective movement. And lots of people have panned the different systems, the F7A, FMS, different systems that have come as a result of that. But quite simply, the shape of the joint structure will dictate function. So because of that, the ball and socket joints, and because of that, with baseball being a throwing sport, it comes down to the hips and the T-spine and thoracic spine. If there's any area that I will focus on quite heavily, whether it's a golfer, baseball athlete, Even the bowler
Yep.
that I've been working with, those are the joints. And said differently, if your T-spine, your thoracic spine is stiff, in extension, in rotation, something's going to break down.
Yeah.
Maybe your T-spine's a little bit more mobile, and we can deal with asymmetry because they're, single arms, one-sided asymmetrical sport athletes, so we're going to see more range of motion on one side than the other. But if your hip, lead leg, is not rotating, or the trail leg for that matter, if you can't get into your hips, force production, like we just spoke about, and something's going to break down.
Yeah.
The sad truth is that we can't prevent injury, but we sure as heck can lessen the odds of it, certainly lessen some of the risk factors, the mitigating factors. So it comes down to the hips and the T-spine, hands down, no question.
Okay. So now transitioning a little bit into the Baseball Performance Summit.
Mm-hmm.
Are there going to be exercises or protocols that you're going to go over, you think, to kind of educate some of the parents, the coaches, and the athletes?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to do my best to have my session be the most interactive session.
Okay.
Because we want people to be up and moving, and I want people to feel their own asymmetry. I want people to feel the differences from side to side. I want people to understand that, okay, asymmetry is common, but how much asymmetry there may not be normal or common or appropriate.
Yeah.
Maybe dysfunctional versus functional.
Yep.
And if we're trying to reduce risk of injury, if we're truly talking about arm care, if we're truly talking about all these things to give these kids the best chance for success, we're going to have to make sure we know how the movements are supposed to feel.
Yep.
So yeah, I will do my best to lecture less and move more.
I like it.
Because that's the stuff that matters.
Yeah. No, I think I'm hoping that the players and the parents and coaches that come to the summit, they see the value in this, because far too many times, and I see it here, I'm always yelling at the athletes here, people don't value these little boring exercises, right? Like, who wants to sit on the wall and do a thoracic rotation exercise? I get it. People want to lift heavy, they want to run fast, they want to jump high and do all those funner, or more fun, sorry, bad grammar, activities. How do you really get that buy-in? Is it really just like scaring them? Like, hey, like, if you're not going to do this and you potentially get hurt, or being like, if you want to truly get better, like, this is what someone like Josh Allen, right? This is what he's doing, then you should do it too, right? Like, how do you do it?
So I'm going to go against what I said before as it pertains to the 0.00001%. If Tiger Woods, he just had back surgery, but the best example, but we're going to stick with it. If Tiger Woods, if Josh Allen, I'm sure Nolan Ryan, if all the highest level of athletes have position-specific coaches and go through the details, the simple stuff, no one has a right to avoid them. Mm-hmm. No one gets a pass. And in two examples, right? Again, football, because that tends to be more what I review. And everyone made fun of Dak Prescott for the Monday night game, like the hip shift, all that. Yeah. He is demonstrating in real time the steps he goes through from a repetitive motion standpoint and a motor control standpoint, how he's generating force from his lower extremity, the hip whip.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes, also from Hard Knocks in particular, the I'm thinking of. Him with, going back and forth, and not with a heavy band, or even with like a rag and just going through with his whole body, just going through the motion, right? They're not avoiding the simple, basic stuff. Mm-hmm. They're doing it intra-season. Yeah. No one gets a pass. Yep. It's not as cool. I get that. Yeah. But it's not as cool? It's not being able to play because you're injured. Exactly. That's not as cool.
It's funny you bring that up. I was at I took a bunch of athletes to a Yankee game a couple years back. And
you didn't bring everyone, apparently. I didn't know about this.
But, we can only bring so many.
Moving on.
But, so we're there during their warm-ups, and, Aaron Judge is out there warming up, Giancarlo Stanton, a bunch of guys. And I hear the athletes like, Anthony, I do those exercises too. And I'm like, it's weird that you say that. Now you understand, like, all these warm-up drills, all these prep drills, right? That's why we do it, is to try to teach your body to move better, and it's some kids get it, some kids buy in and they feel the difference, but sometimes it takes somebody getting injured for them to regroove and reframe their whole mindset.
That's the hardest part with the youth athlete. I said the phrase earlier, they're neurologically fried. There's so much stimuli. TikToks and the Snapchats and all that. And I don't care if I sound old right now, but like they're constantly bombarded with information
Yep.
and stimuli, and their nervous system can get fried. On top of they're at a rate of growth that's ridiculous. Other than the first year development, like the craziest rate of growth that goes on. That's why half of them, if not more, walk around like newborn deers, just all sorts of awkward, but then they could be superstar athletes.
Yep.
And because of that, because of all of that, we have to slow it down and develop appropriate motor control.
Yep.
It's the hardest time to do it because of those reasons, but it's the most critical time. Because that's what all those athletes are demonstrating. They're demonstrating repetition. Even talk about when Jenny Finch at the All-Star game years ago, she's a tremendous softball athlete, throwing pitches, and she struck out Pujols.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have the reps of seeing the underhand softball pitch versus overhand pitcher.
Yep.
Guy's pretty good at hitting,
Yeah.
generally, right? Albert
Yeah.
Pujols is pretty good, yeah. He didn't have the reps. And it's not strength. It's not even mobility at that point.
No.
It's motor control. It's controlling your body through space and doing enough times that it can be reproducible. And that's why the simple stuff is kills. That's what matters.
Yeah. No, that's valuable. So obviously you have 3 children now, which is pretty crazy. So Sammy's now getting to an age where he's playing sports and everything like that. How do you, like with kids that young, like is there anything you're trying to in a fun, I guess, creative way, teach him? Is there anything you would tell parents, whatnot, like, hey, you should be doing this a little bit more at those younger ages?
It's the hardest thing to do because you want as a parent to see them succeed.
Yeah.
You want them to score goals. You want them to make great saves. You want them to take the ball away. You want them to have just great moments in the games. But the plot, I mean, my son's 8. My oldest son's 8. So he's supposed to have fun.
Yeah.
And like winning's fun.
Yeah.
Right? And losing is not fun.
No.
And I think that matters. I don't think we should lose that point. But the plot is to have fun and grow and work as a teammate and all that. So honestly, I care more about his mental space than any physical development. We talk about early sports specialization,
Yep.
not the best thing. You want kids to be well-rounded athletes. Only at a certain point should they do it. He just wants to play soccer right now.
Okay.
We did basketball, he didn't like it. I'm like, hey, why don't you do lacrosse? A lot of your
Yeah.
friends do it. No.
No.
Why don't you do baseball? You got a great arm. No.
You like soccer? Okay.
He likes soccer. And so, I want him to have diverse movements and run around, but I want him to have fun. So anything I do is more like, what's your headspace, how you approach it? And thankfully, to his credit, he just naturally is a hard worker.
Yeah.
He just naturally is running around and not taking a break and not dogging it, not cherry picking, not waiting for his team. He loves defense.
Yep.
Because he's confident. He feels confident when he does it. I asked him, why do you like it so much? I don't know. Of course you don't, because you're 8 and you're a boy and you're not going to tell me anything. I have to beg you to give me answers. But when I ask him questions and soliciting information, it's because he feels comfortable.
Yeah.
He knows what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I care way more about his headspace than I do about his, his hip rotation and his groin stretches and making sure his calf muscles aren't too tight. That stuff matters.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
It should be fun first.
Yes. No, I agree. It's funny because you do see some of the crazy parents on the sidelines and they get so into it. But at the end of the day, you're right. Like you just gotta have some fun with it.
Like he's in 3rd grade. Other kids his age, should they have like shooting sleeves in basketball? Like you want to have swag. You want to look the part. You want to feel the part. You want to feel cool as you belong.
Yes.
He wants cool cleats. But just have fun and play the game and get better at it.
Yeah. No,
And
I
get
agree.
better at being a teammate. Get better at being like someone who works well with other people. Then we'll worry about the Macy signature shoes or whatever else in that case, or the same Bryce Harper glasses that whatever it would be, right? Like all that stuff can come secondary or tertiary or quaternary, whatever, after we get the plot and get the basics.
No, without a doubt. But all right, I've taken enough of your time. Well, I'll ask you one more question.
Oh boy.
What's the fate of the Bills this year?
Oh my God, why do you gotta do that?
You got to answer. I got to put you on the spot.
I think pressure builds diamonds, right?
Okay.
It's true. Everyone, every year, people say, oh, their window's closed now. And at some point that'll be true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people understand, and my kids definitely don't understand. They all like Josh Allen. Benjamin is 7 months old. He doesn't know anything yet. He's learning, rapidly learning how to move. But his Bills fandom is forced upon him. Unfortunately, Sabres too, but that's a whole other conversation. We don't talk about that outwards in public. But they need adversity, and they were so terrible for so long that all of this is still like a strange dream that they have last year's MVP on their team.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to lose the past game or two to get better.
Yeah.
Their bye couldn't come in at a better time.
Yes.
The real question is, do they have what it takes to get past the Chiefs? I mean, let's get there first.
Okay.
At the end of the season, if they don't win the division for the first time in 6 years, whatever it is, but they're wild card spot, okay. Like if Josh Allen didn't win MVP last year, he doesn't care about that. I don't care about that. Yeah, it's cool we had the MVP. I want the team that's going to beat the teams that they need to get into the AFC Championship, to get into the Super Bowl. Where they've gotten whooped by the Eagles, not as bad as the Chiefs did.
Yeah.
I'll say that. But
Yeah.
maybe they probably still would have.
Yeah.
But let's get there one game at a time, and let's know that they need some adversity to get there. It's in early in the season. The Bengals won last night.
Mm-hmm.
Who lost their star quarterback.
Yep.
Let's get there. Now they have Joe Flacco, who they talk about being so old. He's like a year older than I am. He looks older than I do, thankfully. But like
He does. Wait, how old is he?
he might be 40,
Oh, so that means you're going to be 40 next year?
maybe.
Oh, wow.
My half birthday's coming up. I expect something, especially because I didn't go to the
Okay.
Yankees game.
I got you.
Short answer to your sentence: the season is young.
Okay.
The Bills' season is young. Do they have the coach to do it? I don't know. Like, you can complain about everything. People like, oh, well, they shouldn't draft it. Injuries happen. Attrition happens. There's going to be bad game calls. We want the net effect to be that they're playing well at the time that they need to, when they need to, against the teams that they need to. That's how it works.
Oh, okay.
So
All
do
right.
they have what it takes to beat the Chiefs? I don't care if they lose in the regular season. I want them to win, obviously. But they've been winning against the Chiefs in the regular season. What happens in the playoffs? We all know.
Yep.
Don't you dare say 13 seconds to me. But if they beat the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Chargers or whatever team in the playoffs, that's what matters. So
Okay.
I'm as I always have been, but I have reason to be for the latter part of this. I'm cautiously optimistic. That's
All
how
right.
I always have been as a Bills fan. Little pessimistic during parts of it, the EJ Manuel years in particular, but that's okay. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and you have been very polite not to mention this, but their season will go better than specifically in our league, my fantasy season, which is not a reflection of my self-worth. So.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Well, there you have it. We'll see what happens with the Bills this year. Thanks for coming on, Dr. J.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it.